Okay, today we'll talk about the uses of gold in various ancient civilizations, starting with Sumerian, Hittites, and Egypt, etc. When we look at the formation of gold, we see that there are various theories, but the most accepted ones are that when you have a very big star, much bigger than sun, in their center, some elements are being synthesized or formed because of the pressure in their center. But in the sun, when we look at sun, sun cannot produce any metal with the atomic number higher than iron. In the center of the sun, we do not have any other element bigger than iron. But in big stars, this can happen, and you know what supernova is when they grow and when they approach towards the end of their lifetime. There's the big pressure in the center, squeezes the center furthermore, and then they produce elements much bigger than iron, like gold, platinum, silver, etc. And then when they explode, the gold and the other metals are scattered in the universe. So this is one of the theories. And the other one is that when two neutron stars collide during that high energy, high pressure, also again, the elements equal to iron or smaller than iron, they fuse to each other, and then they produce iron, platinum, silver, etc. And since supernovas existed in the beginning of the universe, some of the stardust, due to the explosion of the supernovas, arrived at stage of the formation of the Earth. And then we had some gold, but the gold that we have in the surface of the Earth came from the supernovas after Earth was formed. Just few hundred thousand years or few hundred million years, sorry, 1,000 years, they arrived. But there is also gold in the center of the Earth. There is molten iron, because iron is the biggest element that was present in the very beginning of the Earth, formation of the Earth. It's molten iron, and because of that we have the magnetic field, as you know. When you rotate the iron, we produce a magnetic field. Therefore, there is a lot of molten iron which came through the formation of the Earth from the dust. But of course, we cannot reach to the center of the Earth. It will be there. And also there is gold in the oceans, a lot of gold in the ocean, but it's not feasible to try to extract gold from the oceans. But there are tons of gold. So, yeah, as I mentioned, when about 4,003 billion years ago, when Earth was around 200 million years old, the supernovas sent some of the gold dust. And when we look at the sources of iron on surface of the Earth, we see that they are usually in pure metallic form. Sometimes you watch in television some documentaries that people collect gold from the rivers, from the rocks, things like that. Always if you recall, they are always in metallic form, small chunks of gold, small particles. So that's how it exists on the surface of the Earth, not in the form of a compound. It's usually pure gold, or sometimes it's alloy of silver. And I don't know if you heard the word electrum. Did you hear the word electrum? It's alloy of gold. When it's about 20% silver and 80% gold. Duydunuz mu hiç elektrum? When you go to the Anatolian Civilization Museum, there are some objects there, and they used to write electron, which is I don't know if they still do. It was a wrong spelling at that time. they didn't know the difference between electrum and electron. So I don't know if they changed it. So electrum is just an alloy. Okay. Yeah, you may also find alloy of lead or mercury, of gold. Let me ask you this. When you have an alloy of mercury and silver, what do we call that? You remember that? Alloy of mercury and silver. Yeah, amalgam, yeah. It's the one that they use in earth. They still do it, even though, as you know, mercury is a very harmful element, but they still do it. I don't know. Probably it's not so easy for the mercury to be released from your teeth to get into your system, but it's still very, very harmful to use, because mercury is harmful for us when it gets into your physiological system. In the old days, they used to use some mercury compounds. When you see felt hats, keçe şapka, yani fötr şapka var ya. So that's called, hat made out of felt. The hat makers in Middle Ages, people like to wear hat more than today, and they used to call this man is mad as a hatter, because hat makers were exposed to mercury compounds, and they were a bit crazy. They would get angry very quickly, and so they called them, this guy is mad like a mad hat maker. Okay, well, anyway, so mercury is harmful, we all know that. But in the old days, in the Middle Ages again, when the people saw mercury metal, they were shocked, because, as I mentioned before, perhaps they thought that it was a kind of silver, but it lost its spirit. Then it's soft, it's liquid. So that's why the alchemists in Middle Ages in Europe tried to convert mercury to silver, because they said this is definitely silver. But somehow it lost this, they called it phlogiston theory. It was accepted in the Middle Ages for a long time. So gold lost its spirit somehow, and it became lead, because the density of lead is so closer to the density of gold, and the appearance of mercury is similar to that of silver. So they said, oh, if silver loses its spirit, it becomes mercury. If gold loses its spirit, it becomes lead. Well, anyway, so that theory, of course, was abolished when they realized that the chemistry had nothing to do with phlogiston or anything spirit. But anyway. Now, as we mentioned before, you can find metallic gold in the nature in many places. I mean, you cannot just walk on the street and find gold now, but in the old days it was a lot easier to find gold. So even the caveman realized that it was something different than stones and other elements. So it became valuable for them. So we, as far as we know, about 40,000 BC, around 40,000 BC, in Paleolithic times, in Spain, in a cave, they found small pieces of natural or native gold. But of course, that didn't mean that they processed the gold. So the first time that we see that gold was processed and converted into some jewelry, it goes back to about 4,600 BC or 4,200 BC in Bulgaria, in a grave, in the grave of an old man. They found many jewelry made out of gold and some other jewelry as well. You can easily see the bright golds. He must be a very rich man, probably a king in Bulgaria. They were all processed gold. So this is the oldest jewelry made out of gold as far as we know. Okay, so this is again the same jewelry after they are cleaned and then being displayed in a museum in Varna, Bulgaria. Now let's get back to Sumerians. Sumerians were the first civilization who invented alphabet, and then they kept a good record of everything. So we see that there is nomenclature of gold. When pure, just ordinary gold, they call hurashu arku. When it's fine, high quality gold is hurashu elu. White gold, that is electrum alloy, alloy of gold, silver, hurashu sammu. And superfine, very pure gold, hurashu damku. Damku is, I'll talk about damku later. Hurashu siirpu is refined gold after processing, after purifying. We don't see anything older than this, nomenclature anywhere in the world. Now, there are many clay tablets related to gold because Sumerians knew the value of gold, and they were smart enough to keep the record of everything on clay tablets. There are many of them. I'll just show you just a few of them. In a first millennium tablet, it says 5 shekels of silver for 1/2 shekels of gold, the price. So if you give half a shekel of gold, you can get 5 shekels of silver. So that shows the ratio of the price. Like today, we know how many, the price of silver and gold, and then sometimes they talk about the price of gold and silver in the market. During Babylonian times, it varied between 6 to 1 shekel of gold to 6 shekel of silver, up to 1 shekel of gold to 17 shekel of silver. During time of Hammurabi in 1725, the ratio was again 6 to 1. So during inflation, there was always inflation. In Mesopotamia, the prices, of course, just like today, inflation increased, so the ratio went up very high. Now, not only the documentation was carried out in palaces, but of course the silversmith, goldsmith also kept good record. Now, if a lady came to the goldsmith and then says, look, I have a bracelet, but I want to have a ring and then maybe necklace. He weighed the bracelet, and then he melted it, purified it, and then he made an alloy, whatever arrangement he required or she required, depending on the price. And then he produced the necklace and then the ring. Then he took his fee, whatever is left, he returned whatever is left to the lady with necklace and the new ring. He says, 1/3 minas and 3 shekels of naltar gold. It's probably naltar is a kind of definition of a kind of gold, but it says loss is 7 mina 1.5, or 7 times 1. Sorry, 7.5 shekel. When you smelt the gold, you lose some of it, because gold is not 100%. So smelting means that you will lose. If you start with 10 minas, you may end up with 7 or 7.5 or 8 minas, depending on the purity of the gold. If it has a lot of copper, then you lose a lot. So he says this. That means he had 1 mina that is 60, and 1/3 shekels. 60 and 1/3 shekels means 1 mina is 60 shekels. 3 shekel of naltar gold and plus 3 shekels. And when I smelted, he says, I lost 7.5 shekels. Remainder, 1 mina, whatever is left is 1 mina, 1/2 shekels of gold at the disposal of the goldsmith. So this man, it seems that he purifies the gold and gives it to goldsmith so that he can make a jewelry. So we see that some people only purify the gold or adjust the purity of the gold. The jewelers also purify gold, but in some cases we understand that they obtain purified gold. Another one says 4, 5 or 6 minas of gold, loss is 1 mina, 2 shekels, and then the remainder is 3, 1.5 minas and 8 shekels of gold. Now you can check if the calculations is correct. We don't have time today. You have to do it at home. Now, some goldsmiths purified the gold twice to make sure that you obtain probably the best or purest gold. So he says, 5 minas of gold put into the fire. At the first firing, at the first time of smelting, 2/3 minas, 5 shekels of gold disappeared. So it means that it was not very pure. And reduced to 4 minas, 15 shekels. In the second firing, 1/2 minas, 2 shekels of gold were lost. You see, the loss is smaller because it purified once. In the second time, it loses some more. And then finally, I obtain, he says, 3 times 2/3 minas and 3 shekels of pure gold. So you can check this out if it is correct. Karmaşık bir şey yok değil mi burada? Her şey basit. Okay. Now we have 2 more examples about refining twice, but we don't have all the details. It says 6 shekels disappeared in the furnace to yield 52 shekels. Probably the beginning of the clay tablet is somehow is not easy to read or lost or broken, but we see that he says this much disappeared, and then I had 52 shekels. These were put into the furnace for the second firing or second smelting process. Another one says 5 minas of gold in 5 ingots. There are 5 small pieces, altogether 5 minas. Refining twice yielded 3 minas of 43 shekels, and then were given to the goldsmith. There are many other examples, but I think this is just enough to give us an idea. Now let's look at the gold jewelry from Sumerian time. You can see that beautiful necklace during the time of Sumerians, 2900, 2350 BC, around in that area. Most of the things that we see made out of gold, especially like chairs or some statues, they are 99% of the time are not pure gold, casted gold. They used very thin layers, or they made the statue out of wood, and then they glued very thin foils of gold, just like today, altın varaklama. Okay, so they discovered varaklama because they didn't. Even the kings, the richest kings also, when they had their throne, taht with gold, usually they had. It's coated with very thin foils of gold, usually on wood, or sometimes big statues, maybe marble, whatever. Now, do you know about Ur and Uruk in Mesopotamia, where they are? Ur, the city of Ur and Uruk. Hiç duydunuz mu? Ur, Uruk. They were the most important city-states in Mesopotamia during Sumerian times. Let me see if I have this statue. The map is here, yeah. Now this is the map of Mesopotamia. Tigris and Euphrates, Dicle Fırat, reaching to Basra Körfezi. Ur is here, Uruk is here. So these are very important Sumerian city-states. In Mesopotamia, Sumerians did not have a big empire. Usually they had small city-states, and Ur and Uruk were the most important one. But the civilizations usually developed there. We will see how much gold they produced. Okay, now in 1920s, archaeologists from England and United States, and some also from France, started to excavate Mesopotamia and Egypt. In Egypt, it started even earlier because of the pyramids, but the discovery of Mesopotamia civilization was much later. But in 20s, they excavated the city of Ur, and it was a very important excavation taking place at this time. They discovered a tomb, mezar, anıt mezar, of a queen. Her name is Queen Puabi. She was the ruler of Ur, the city-state of Ur. She was the king or queen. And they were lucky to recover lots of golden materials, like this is the gold decorated lyre of Queen Puabi. This is golden bull, and various places. Of course, this is restored in the tomb or in the grave. Most of the wood was disintegrated, but gold pieces were there. So they restored it. It's in a museum now. It's in Baghdad. They found several lyres, but the best one is in Iraq. They have several ones in British Museum in England. Now we see how they used it. They just used it as we use lyre today. You can see a man playing lyre. Also, this is a drawing or painting or depiction on a chest, wooden chest. There are many other figures, but this is the one with the lyre. So the one that we saw before is the oldest musical instrument in the world, as far as we know. Now, okay. Now let's see how it happened. This is a historical telegram. Oh, let me try to read these letters. Let me try to enlarge it if I can. Can you read these words there? He is a British professor of archaeology. Arcatum, I never heard a word like this in English. Integrum, I never heard a word like this in English. You can see it, right? Gözüküyor değil mi rakamlar? Now, why do you think that he didn't write in regular English, but can you estimate what language this is? Latin, yeah, it's Latin. He didn't want spies to find out that he discovered a big treasury, the tomb of a queen. So let's see what... Ay Allah. Büyütünce küçülmüyordu benimki. Nasıl yapsam ki? Akılsız gibi mouse'umu da getirmedim. Mouse olmadan böyle sorun çıkartabiliyor. Bilen var mı nasıl küçülteceğim ben bunu? Nasıl?
Aşağıda sağ alt tarafta artı x olması lazım. Sayfanın altında. Şeyde hocam. PowerPoint.
Şurada kim? Çalıştırmaz ki. Ha peki tamam benimki o. Takalım. İyi sen tedbirliymişsin. Ben sabah aklımdaydı getireyim lazım olur dedim gene de aldım. Ne ya? Okay. Niye oraya yansımıyor bu ya? Ne yaptım ben? Gözüktü değil mi? Okay. Now, in the telegram, he says, I found the intact, yani hırsızlar tarafından soyulmamış. Bu hani şeyde görüyorsunuz, hani Mısır firavunlarına hırsızlar çalıyor. Tomb, stone built and vaulted over with bricks. Taştan yapılmış, üstü de tuğlalarla kapatılmış. Bricks of Queen Shubat. Before they excavated this tomb, they knew that there was a queen, but they named her as Shubat. He didn't know that her real name was Puabi because they had no idea. But they found a small cylinder seal on which her name was written as Queen Puabi. Then they started to call her Puabi. In the beginning, they used to call it theoretically Shubab. But anyway, adorned with a dress in which gems, flowers, crowns and animal figures are woven. İşte üzerinde süslü püslü elbiseler vardı. The tomb was magnificent with jewels and golden cups, woolly. That professor became Sir later on. So he became a very famous archaeologist because this was one of the most important discoveries ever made in Mesopotamia. In 20s also they were digging the tomb of Tutankhamun in 20s. But he worked many years, but he sent this telegram in 1928. So it took he worked there, I think, 20, 30 years. Now, this is Queen Puabi. You can see that she has a beaded cape and a nice headdress, all made out of gold. There were hundreds of jewels in her tomb. This is one of her rings. Yani bugün piyasada olsa herhalde hanımların çoğu bunu beğenip alabilir. Okay, this is again her cape. These are the rings, probably made out of very thin wire, gold wires, and she was wearing one ring on every finger. She had 10 of them in all of their on her fingers. Now, this is a servant. I think there were 21 servants or attendants. Even she, all of them, they were wearing gold decorated head dresses. Also necklaces. As you know, when king died in Mesopotamia or Egypt, they killed all the servants or the attendants, and then most of the guards, soldiers, they were all killed and then buried in the same tomb with their dresses and whatever they had. So we can see that there were also skeletons of soldiers. You remember they were wearing, we said, copper helmets. They found those copper helmets in this tomb, in this grave also, and short spears, the walking soldiers, piyadeler. Now, as I mentioned before, there is no evidence that she had a king husband. There is no mention of the king husband. In her seal, it says Queen Puabi. So it is definite that she was the only ruler of the state of Ur. She was the real queen. I mean, of course, the wife of the king is also called queen, but she has no authority. But she's queen all alone. She was the only ruler. Now, she was around 40 years old, but she was a short lady, less than 150 centimeters from the skeleton. But the seal definitely proved that she was the king and her name was Puabi. This is her cylinder seal. Now let's switch to gold production and gold jewelry in Egypt. This is a child bracelet, gold bracelet, of course, the child of a rich person. Now this is, you can see the golden sandals and the toe stalls. Ayak parmaklı, kadın ayak kralın eşi bu. She is the wife of Thutmose III in Egypt. You can see how beautiful the sandals are. Now, this is the gold ring of Akhenaten. You know, Akhenaten was a child king or pharaoh in Egypt. His father was Amenophis IV, and Akhenaten is the king who changed the religion of Egypt. Tutankhamun is his son. Now, we don't know exactly what happened to Akhenaten and his wife. Do you know his wife's name? Akhenaten's wife, very famous lady, big statue, beautiful lady, most beautiful woman. The bust, it's a museum in Berlin. Queen Nefertiti, hatırladınız mı? Çok güzel bir profili olan, işte Hitler zamanında Berlin'e götürülmüş. Nefertiti'nin mührü de bizim şeyde bulundu. Uluburun batığının içinde Nefertiti'nin mührü var. Bahsetmiştim galiba. Okay. So this is the ring of Akhenaten. Akhenaten is Amenophis IV also, but he changed his name to Akhenaten. He said, why we have so many gods? God of sun, God of moon, God of rain, God of etc., this and that, ocean, whatever. He said, there should be one God. So Akhenaten was the first person in the world before Moses to declare that there should be one God. We should pray to one God. But he also said that I am the representative of the God, just like all the kings. But that attracted too much hatred from the religious men, from the priests. Now, just think that if somebody comes and says, this country will not be Muslim anymore, who will get upset at the beginning? All the imams, right? Because that's their job. But what are they going to do? They will be on the street. So the priests, they were all out on the street. They had nothing, no salary, nothing. So there was a big turmoil. There was big protests, etc. He actually moved the capital to another place. He built a big palace and a temple. He said, this is your temple from now on. So all the other temples were just nothing. Of course, everybody hated him. Not only the priest, but the people on the street. Since their childhood, maybe the man is 50, 60 years old, he prayed to various gods and he believed in that. And all of a sudden, overnight, it was not easy to change the religion. There was big turmoil, big trouble, and somehow Akhenaten and Akhenaten just disappeared. Probably he was killed. We don't know what happened. There is no accurate written document, but these are the gold pieces of Akhenaten. His ring, he was using it as a seal. We'll talk about Tutankhamun later on. I'll say a few words. Now, this is a gold collar of Tutankhamun, his son. When Akhenaten disappeared, probably killed, and there is a doubt that possibly Nefertiti became the pharaoh of Egypt for a short time. But probably she was killed also. We don't know. The Egyptians also kept very good written documents. But in turmoil times, all of these written documents disappears everywhere. So possibly she served as a queen for several years, and then she disappeared. At that time, Akhenaten was only 9 years old. He was just a child. And this is his ring seal, Tutankhamun's ring seal. His name is on it. And this is a very famous, perhaps one of the most famous throne in the world, totally coated with gold. Lions, as you can see, they were always respecting lions, lion feet also. Beautifully decorated, gold throne. Also, he, of course, had golden sandals, Tutankhamun's golden sandals. And now let's get back to Anatolia and see the uses of gold or gold jewelry in Anatolia. Before Hittites occupied and ruled in Anatolia, there were the Hatti people. But of course, at that time there was no alphabet, so we don't have any written document proving that Hattis, the names of kings of Hattis or their civilization. But of course, we have the gold and silver or other metallic objects from Hattis. This is a gold ibrik, altın ibrik. And there are several of them. But let's switch to Hittites again. This is a goddess, Hittite goddess with a child. A small statue, it's used as a pendant, yeah, very, very small one. This is a gold bracelet from the time of Hittites. This is just recently found, just this year, I think several months ago, in Çorum. He was digging his farm. He accidentally discovered this bracelet, very new. And a gold necklace. This is not in Turkey, unfortunately, it's in British Museum. And Hittite gold pin. But the head was like a poppy capsule, haşhaş. Yani o zamanlar haşhaş kafayı buldurmak için herkes biliyor, içiliyor yani. Yani her yerde, sadece bizde değil, tüm dünya haşhaş biliniyor. Kafa bulduran bir şey, bitki diye. This is an amulet, muska. But it's not in Turkey also. It's a very small statue. It's in, again, British Museum. Now, yeah, we have about 10-15 minutes. I stopped this lecture here in not many slides. Let's watch it. Ne oldu buna ya? Neden bunu? Öbürüne bakayım, o da mı öyle? Allah Allah. Peki şöyle bir şey yapalım.
Hocam kontrole basıp tıklarsanız direkt açıyorsunuz.
Bastım, açmadı. Yani iyi basamadım herhalde. Açmadı. Açıyordu, evde denemiştim. Neyse, kopyalayıp şeye koyayım. Google. Ses geliyor mu? Nabonidus'u hatırladınız mı? Kral Nabonidus altın şeyi vardı, helmeti vardı. Biraz hafif kafadan şey, dine çok bağlı. Fark ettiniz değil mi? Kral kraliçe izlemeye geliyorlar kazıyı İngiltere'den. Biraz hızlandırayım. Mezarın çizimi burası. Buraları hızlı geçeceğim çünkü zaten çoğunu gördünüz. Bu zaten simülasyon. Ha, bizim şeyin orijinal fotoğrafı işte. Mezardan çıktığı hali bu elinde adamın. Her tarafı bütün alçıyla falan sağlamlaştırmış ki kırılmasın diye. Evet, bunu bırakalım. Vaktimiz daralıyor, diğerine geçelim. Bu da çalışmıyor galiba. Hayret. Neyse gene copy paste yapayım bari. Geçişleri görsün diye yaptım. Hani seramik, bronz, kapır. Demin gördüğümüz, hatırlıyorsanız. Kadınlar da erkekler de küpe, bilezik, yüzük ve gerdanlık takıyor. Erkekler de takıyor. Bunlar bildiğiniz, gördüğünüz şeyler. Evet.